Welcome to this Back Out for Web series. My name is Dan Dombrowski, and today I'm speaking with the CEO of Mondee, Prasad Gundumogula, as well as ITHAX Acquisition CEO, Orestes Fintiklis. ITHAX has taken Mondee public in a deal valued at $842 million, and the company sells excess inventory in the leisure and corporate travel space to closed groups through multiple platforms. We discuss the evolution of the travel industry spanning multiple decades and how an archaic model led to the creation of Mondee. They walk me through how the market's changed over the past 11 years since the company was founded, and this leads into how their brands are currently positioned in both domestic and international travel, and what they'll be looking for in M&A and product segments going forward. Please enjoy my conversation with Prasad and Orestes. Now, before we dive into the origins of Mondee, could we actually take a look at the travel industry in the 2 to 3 decades leading up to the founding of the company?
I have to go not 20 to 30 years, 30 to 40 years. So there are a lot of evolution in the travel industry, okay? And these changes happen by specific events. So if I talk about the first evolution, there is a regulated, travel industry used to operate in the regulated environment. The airlines, the hotels, they have to sell at the regulated prices. So when the deregulation happened, the first evolution happened and it opened up the industry. So that's the first evolution. Then the second evolution is because that industry is open, that demand has increased substantially. They increase the capacity. In order to maintain their capacity, they have to create this wholesalers, a private channel from the public channel. That's another evolution happen. Then the technology come in its way, the change in the technology, companies like GDS, Sabre, Amadeus, and Travelport, they bring in the technology to the travel agency world that got a next evolution in place 30 years back. Okay. Then the internet brought another evolution. So it brought all these new online travel companies and the web presence and all. So it brought into that. So our companies, whether the companies that we acquired, which has this 30, 40 years of experience, they are the ones who were created as a wholesalers at the beginning. From that point till now, they have seen all the different evolutions. And also, I came from the technology background. We have seen so much from how the technology evolved, to solve the problems in various industries. So having the experience in both travel and technology side of it, we are able to see where the new evolution is happening now in the gig economy world and the lackings of the platform today in the market. And that's what we are solving here. So this is the history.
And may I add a point there? You mentioned that Mondee is an 11-year-old company. What I would say is that it's more of a 40-year-old company because Mondee started in 2011 by acquiring 7 other companies that were around for another 40 years, right? So the experience that the people of Mondee have is not just in the last 11 years, it's more in the last 40 years, and it goes with the entire evolution of the travel industry.
And I guess to that point, let's set the stage a little bit better. What was the state of the travel industry in 2011? And then if you can dive into beyond that, what is your background prior to Mondee?
Yeah. So my background, I'm a technology, person, and I'm a technology entrepreneur. So I did a serial, I'm a serial entrepreneur, started the companies from the bootstrap and be able to exit to a very big organizations. So all in technology world in different industries, and now, get into the travel back in 2008 and started to Mondee in 2011. When we started Mondee in 2011, everything, especially the travel, is divided into the online travel, which the total market size is $2 trillion. Half of that is online travel, and another half is offline, affiliated, assisted travel side of it. And online travel has been matured, and there's a technology that has been disrupted there, by the introduction of internet and all these, new technologies and, phases that came in. But on the offline, the assisted travel side of it, it's been working on 30, 40 years old, systems. and it's very underserved with the technology and the business aspect. So we brought in 2011, we saw that as an opportunity. We created a platform of a subsegment of that $1 trillion market in the travel agency side of it. And the business was operating over the phone and very manual around that time. And we brought this technology platform that automated their current workflow and be able to bring them a real-time system through which that they transact, as well as bringing the new technology platforms such as fintech and martech and all that in their lives.
So it sounds like the void that you were trying to fill was that automation aspect of it and bringing things more online. But what did you perceive particularly to be your specific edge?
The specific edge is the content distribution in the most efficient way, right? And two is bringing them to the up to speed in the current world. So they do not have any ways that they can do a transaction using a new fintech world. They're still working on the old, the processing of the credit card transactions. Believe it or not, even if you go online and see that, you cannot make the payments through a wallet, in majority of systems. So they're working on very archaic, systems, and we brought them into their current workflows.
And to add a layer of context to that, who were the market leaders at the time, both online and offline segments?
The online is, obviously Expedia, the Priceline, and the supplier sites and all out there. But offline, there's no real leader. It's very, it's fragmented. It's very disparate systems out there. So there's no real leader. That's where we see an opportunity to come and take that world. And we started with the subsegment of that market. Now we are opening to the full market.
So I mean, that lays certainly a solid foundation for the history of the online travel, and then why Mondee actually got started. So can you walk us to the present, and in that 12 or 13 years going on now, of what's the evolution of the industry, and then how has Mondee actually evolved with that?
So the evolution of the industry is that, as I mentioned to you, not only in travel. If you're talking about the entire, in world and the mobile, the social, the gig economy, there's a lot of stuff happened in the last 12 years, right? And going to happen. So, when we started the business, and we know that there's a subsegment of the market where that everything is happening offline, and we automated that whole function, and to bring the tools, that improve their efficiency and all. Taking that as a base, now we are moving into the gig economy world, which we think is the right platform for us to pivot into and be able to bring the value and to fill the gaps in that area.
Sure. And how much did the pandemic, I guess, accelerate that? And what does that look like now for travel conditions, both from a domestic and international perspective?
So the pandemic has, obviously impacted, and changed the entire dynamics of the market, right? It accelerated certain things, and it, retired certain other things and all of that. However, the recovery of the travel is happening very well. We are not at 2019 level yet. The domestic travel has been recovered very well, and it's the domestic flights and all at the 90% levels of 2019. But international, it's below 50% as of today. And we are expecting that to be at 2019 levels in 2023. So the market is recovering. However, the way that we are operating in the segments that we are operating, we have been growing much faster than what the market is recovering. So our revenues have been tripled, close to tripled from in the first quarter of 2022, from 2021, and we also are EBITDA positive. We achieved the positive EBITDA in Q1 of 2022.
I would add a point here because Mondee sells mostly outbound international travel. The results of Mondee, the Q1 that just came out, is more of a proxy for the recovery of the international travel, right? Like you mentioned, everybody knows that domestic travel has already, exceeded probably in some geographies the 2019 levels. But the question, what is happening with international travel? So we have, for the first time now, solid results from Mondee for the Q1 2022, which indicates that the recovery of international travel has already commenced. Like Prasad said, tripling the revenues versus the same quarter in 21, even though Q1 2022 included January and February, the impact of Omicron, which you remember had a certain kind of chilling effect on the recovery of international travel.
And I certainly want to dive into the financials, and especially with the Q1 release of last week. But to take a step back from that, I do want to dive into more of what Mondee actually looks like. So can we dive into what the product segments look like, and then what is the platform, who are your clients, who aren't they? And if you could just give an overview and just really dive into what does Mondee look like today?
So when we started the Mondee and in the last 10, 12 years, right, we have evolved our solutions, our platform, and our customer base. It started with the travel agencies, okay, as our customers, the primary customers, and started with air as our primary thing. So we created the technology platforms and a private content hub, a global content hub in the air, in the travel affiliate market. And we have provided these solutions to them. Then we evolved into, moved from the leisure travel to a bit of, closed user groups and a corporate travel and a leisure travel in the corporate sector. And we evolved into various areas. So from the technology side of it, we evolved from an efficient automated system to a complete platform for the gig economy world. So that's the journey that we had it. From the distribution side of it, from travel agencies to all the different closer user groups, influencer network, and also we evolved. And from the content side of it, from the air in North America to air, hotel, and now we are focusing on all the other segments of the travel, and we are evolving in those areas.
In terms of products, since then you asked the products, and Mondee is a collection of brands. We have more than 50,000 travel affiliates in the program. So this was the main product of the company called TripPro, which is now evolving to capture the gig economy through a new version that is basically targeting not just the traditional travel agencies, but also gig economy workers and also influencers and other bookers of travel. The other product that we have is called TripPlanet, which is a subscription-based product targeting small and medium-sized enterprises and also membership organizations. We have Rocket Trip, which is a product targeting large corporates like Twitter, BMW, our customers. And then the last product, which we are in the process of launching, is called Unpub, and it's a subscription-based product for the consumer directly. So these are the 4 products that Mondee has.
So of those 4 product segments, where are you seeing the largest growth from?
So we are seeing, historically, TripPro segment is our, the biggest product, and it is evolved to a gig economy world. So it's going to continue to be one of the biggest segment. However, TripPlanet, we introduced that in last summer, and by now we are more than, we have access to more than 10 million users in the closed user setup. So that's evolving very fast. It's too early for us to say which one is our favorite. Okay, but everything has its own segment of the market and problems it is solving. So TripPro, TripPlanet, and as the market recovers, we think that Rocket Trip is going to address a good problem and a good market space in the enterprise customer base. In the corporate world, and those are our top 3 ones.
Yeah. I would add that in terms of nominal growth, right? Nominal dollars. Of course, TripPro is the it adds the most growth because it's already very big. Is the de facto operating system in the space. So with small increments in market share, it translates into very large dollar amounts that are added to the bottom line, right? But in terms of percentage growth, I mean, TripPlanet went from 0 to having access to more than 10 million users, right? So percentage-wise, it's always natural that a new product solving a new problem and attacking a different segment of the market is going to have a higher kind of percentage-wise growth.
So with that, I think it'd be helpful for viewers to get an understanding of exactly what demographic each one of those segments is targeting. You give a bit of an overview with TripPro, but I do want to differentiate between what you're tackling from each one.
Yeah, sure. So instead of talking about that as a product, let us talk about that as our marketplace. So we have a marketplace, a modern marketplace that we built through a technology platform. And this marketplace, we are targeting to different customer segments through different products. But the underlying travel technology and the marketplace, it is all the same. Okay. So the marketplace that we built connects the gig travelers, such as the millennials and the Generation Z the travelers, and taking care of their needs and the emerging trends in that market, and connecting them with the gig economy workers, such as part-time workers or the home-based agents and the influencers and local experts and all, and connecting them with the suppliers, in the most efficient, closed user setup by streaming the perishable inventory, to address the perishable inventory into these segments. So we are connecting the travelers with the gig economy workers with the suppliers in our marketplace platform. And in this marketplace, so we have different customer segments. So the travel affiliates and the gig economy travelers, it's all comes under TripPro environment, TripPro platform. And a closed user setup, it can be a small to medium businesses, it can be a club members, it can be a membership organizations, and all are managed through TripPlanet. And a subscribed travelers, like our own club members, are being managed through Unpub. So this is how the our solutions are being built and pave the way to offer different solutions to different customer segments.
I would add that when Mondee started, right, it was initially targeting basically the baby boomers and the generations that were there in the 90s, right? And we provided a technological solution to that issue at that point in time. Now, unlike many large travel companies that have not evolved, right, since the 90s, Mondee keeps evolving its technology, its platforms, and its products, right? And why are we doing that? Because we are seeing a generational shift. Now, the pace of that travel is not driven by the baby boomers. It's driven by the millennials, by the Gen Z generation that have different ways of making consumer choices, right? These guys it's no longer about the internet. These guys are always connected on social media. They are looking for value, in their acquisition. So we are evolving our products and our technology to address the needs of our evolving customers. So I think this is one of the unique features of Mondee as a company, and that's why it has all these different products, and that's why it keeps adding products, because we are in a very dynamic world, and the travel market is equally even more dynamic, than the remaining economy. So we have to stay ahead of the pace of evolution.
And you hear that a lot of companies are proud of their technology and they're innovators and they're the market leaders within their segments. But what does that actually mean to you? Could you walk me through an actual workflow or what the consumer journey might look like that is different from any one of the other competitors out there?
Yeah. So let's talk about any traveler today, what they are doing. Okay. So if you are making a trip, being a traveler, you have to go to some websites to look for air content and buy an air there. Then go to TripAdvisor, look for hotel reviews, and then go to a booking.com. I'm just giving an example, right? And going for a hotel booking, and they look for on the internet and wherever it is cheap, and they take it. And then they go into, trip planning, go to Google or any other places and finding out, what to do in the areas that they're going. So the whole curation of the content is being done by the traveler today. And they are going through different places to do that, and yet not guaranteed that they get the best experience. So the trends that are happening in the Generation Z and millennials world, they wanted the travel experience. They want a personalized experience. So, what we are doing here is that we are creating a platform that not only provide them the products, all these different products in one place through our super app, but at the same time, we are connecting them to the right, expert when they need it in a crowdsourced environment. So if they wanted to see, hey, they're traveling on a cruise, or if they're a backpacker and going on, and we connect them with the right, the local expert or a service person, and be able to create that curating the content of what they needed through the crowdsourced workers. And that makes a big difference in the model that we are talking about. So it provides the best of both the worlds: a self-serviced, a product, where they can see everything in one place, and connecting with the right person who has the expertise of curating the content for them. And that's the differentiator. And we are doing this through a technology platform, the latest and greatest technology platforms, such as the conversational commerce. People may not want to talk to anybody, but they know they can converse, and they can complete the commerce through the conversational or social commerce. So we are bringing this conversational commerce, we're bringing the right fintech tools, and we're bringing this, all these technologies that they get used to it in their lives today. And we are bringing it in the travel side of it.
For what I would add is that from a thematic perspective, right? Most of the marketplaces that you have out there, the big online travel agents, etc., there are two-dimensional platforms. They just connect the consumer with the supplier, which is the airline and the hotel, right? Mondee started from the early days when it was addressing the issues of travel agents as a three-dimensional platform, right? So there are three players in the system, right? So you have the original supplier, which is the airline or the hotel, you have the travel intermediary, and you have the consumer, right? So this three-dimensional model and this three-dimensional technology, which is very much in line with basically the way that Uber works, right? You have the provider of a service, you have the rider, you have the passenger, you have the tech provider. So it's a very similar ecosystem, which is actually evolving and addressing the needs of a world that are more complex than a simple itinerary, a simple two-dimensional itinerary that the traditional online travel agents provide. So I think this is kind of one of the unique features of Mondee, and to that, like Prasad said, you have the conversational commerce, but they all derive from the essence that you are talking about a three-dimensional as opposed to a two-dimensional platform.
And for a viewer or an investor to get a full appreciation for what those key differentiators are, who's a good comparison for Mondee?
So we are evolving, right? I mean, we are moving into this gig economy world. We have very limited competition there, and and we are way ahead of the game in that world. So we may be having, some of our companies may have some, competition from, wholesalers and, the technology players there. But for the bigger picture, in a bigger, macro level, we are like a company like, like Uber, who is disrupting the market and doesn't have any competition with the, the existing taxi things, or the Airbnb with the hotels and all. So we are into a different world of evolution.
So the answer is that there are some competitors in some elements of the business. For example, if you take the wholesaling business, there are still some of the old wholesalers that Mondee didn't acquire in 11 and 12. There are a few players out there, but for the most part, they still transact on the phone or via email. They don't have any technology. So they are competing conceptually, but they are not competing in reality. And that is also reflected in the relative market share, that Mondee has 10 times larger market share than the second and third player combined, right? So basically the answer is that we have competitors on certain aspects of the business, but nobody in travel is systematically with the content technology and distribution that we have targeting the gig economy. So in that way, in that sense, we do not have one large direct competitor.
And no, you just mentioned that Mondee is 10x the closest second and third competitor combined for market share. Could you give more context?
So take how you take it, right? The B2B side of it is very fragmented. And hence that, when you take this fragmented market, the next competitor on a whole is very small compared with everything that we are doing. But if you take the sub-segment of what we are doing, the players who are, much lower in the size, smaller in the size, right? But in the overall aspects, we are that big.
Yeah, it depends how you define the market. But the way we are defining the market, to understand from the flights perspective, right? So in North America in 2019, there were 220 billion of flights sold, right? 70 billion of those 220 billion were sold discounted. So if you define as that market, as the discounted flights market, to be the market that we compete, we have about 5% of that market at the time. And the second and third player combined had less than 1%. So in that sense, we are, the biggest player in this segment. Now, like we said before, we are no longer just flights. Now we have flights, hotels, car rentals, right? Now we are not just disrupting kind of sales to travel agents, but we are disrupting sales to, different cohorts of closed groups. That is why, going back to the previous question, it's very difficult to define who the competitors of Mondee are, in the same way that when Uber started, it was very difficult to define who were the competitors of Uber, right? Was it the taxi drivers? Were they really competitors of Uber? So that's kind of where we are, a very highly disruptive and growth model, but importantly, a company with historical EBITDA and value, which is a unique proposition, right, for the investor community, right? So that's kind of our message.
No, I understand that context. But even with how you're defining the market share, where you've captured 5%, and the second and third competitors are far behind that, that sounds like there's a lot of players in the space. So with so much competition, what do you perceive as the biggest barriers to replicating what your model is, or vastly overtaking you in your market share?
So we have a three-part moat that we built. Okay. One is the technology platform. We created this platform with the uniqueness of taking the best of both travel and technology evolutions into consideration. We invested more than $200 million in creating our platforms. Then the second one is the distribution. So getting hold of this distribution into different customer segments. And it just takes time and requires various value propositions and all to be given to them. Then the third moat is the content. So we created this global content hub, that creates this unique inventory, or the private inventory that's being targeted to these closed user groups. And it takes years and years and decades for our companies to build those connections with various suppliers, and that's another moat for us. So combining technology, the distribution, and the content creates a barrier to entry for us with others.
To add to that, as an investor, as a private equity investor in the space, so say for example somebody says, okay, I'm going to recreate Mondee now. Okay, first you need to build the tech. So you have to put 200 million down, over a period of years, test it, make it, over 11 years, and create the tech. Now, assuming you have the tech, you have to have the discounted content from the airlines and the hotels. So you go to an airline and say, give me discounted content. You know what the airline is going to say? What distribution do you have? So if you have no distribution, why would I give you access to discounted content? So it's like the chicken and the egg. And that is why it has been almost 4 decades that a new wholesaler of flights has been created. And even assuming that now you convince the airline for some reason to give you the content without having a distribution, then you have to go and build the distribution. Mondee took 11 years to go and build 50,000 travel affiliates. So the bottom line is that theoretically, everything is replicable, right? If you want, you can replicate Apple, right? It's just that the cost of replicating is much more and takes such a long period of time than simply investing in Mondee at a pre-money valuation of $800 million, which is an EBITDA of the multiple. So from the perspective of an investor, the obvious choice is to invest, or even a market player that wants to get into this segment of the market, one of the biggest, online travel agents, etc. The obvious choice would be to either invest or acquire Mondee, even at a multiple of what we're bringing to market, than go and replicate this very, very high three-layer barrier to entering this market.
Right. So it's the balance between the capital, the relationships, and the content, all finding a happy medium. Now, outside of what you're doing, do you see any other participants in the marketplace that are kind of taking their unique brand of disruption to the marketplace?
Not that we know in our segment of the market. We are uniquely positioned and way ahead of the game, as far as we know.
Yeah, and to go to that is because the main, like we discussed before, the main players in the sector in travel, right? They have a certain technology which is not geared to having three different dimensions, right? And they also have a different type of content. They have the published content. All the online travel agents and the direct sales channels of the airlines and the hotels, they broadcast to the whole world the fully priced, published rates, right? So it's a structural issue. It's very difficult for the incumbents to enter into this new space because they neither have the technology, nor they have the relevant content, nor do they have the relevant distribution, right? They sell directly to the whole world, they sell the published rate, and then they have a very, kind of simple technology that hasn't evolved for almost 30 years now. So that's kind of the uniqueness of Mondee.
So, I mean, you're staying on top of the evolution of everything, especially with rolling out the Unpub that is, I guess, being released right now. But are there any other trends that you're capitalizing going forward?
So the trends and the macro trends are, everything is going gig. Okay. So the traveler, the change of the pace at the travel is changing is really set by this Generation Z and the millennials. So they are the ones who are looking for a different experience, different travel requirements. That is on one side. The other macro trend which is happening is in the channels through which that this travel is happening. So the travel affiliates are converting into the gig economy workers, or and going part-time, going through their influencer network and all. So it's all evolving there. And then with the coming to the even the businesses, it's more of work from home scenarios and travel to take the their work, and there's a lot of assisted travel to the the travel in which it operates around their work schedules. There's a lot of trends that are happening, and in order to support these trends, the suppliers have to align, and they have to be directly connected. They have to dynamically price and change the inventory to be able to address their perishable inventory issues. So all of these trends that are coming in, and I think we are our platform that we are working gives the solution for each party the right value proposition.
I would add to that we are seeing, and this is a trend that has been exacerbated and accelerated by COVID. There is a structural change in the nature of the labor markets, right? So what happened is that the pandemic gave the chance to people to work from home, right? So once they tasted this freedom, very few people are willing to go back to the 9-to-5 office job. I see it in our hotels. We own a bunch of hotels. It's extremely difficult to find employees, to carry out the various tasks in the hotel, precisely because now people with a certain level of sophistication, they can do a bit of Ubering, they can do a bit of DoorDash, they can download TripPro, and they can sell travel, right? So basically, this structural change in the labor market is powering this gig economy, which is the essence of the new tools that Mondee is launching into the market.
Sure. I mean, this is kind of the perfect segue into talking about how you're actually executing on everything. So can we talk about the most recent filings that you came out with last week for Q1 results?
Yeah, it's an exciting ride for us. The Q1 results were reviewed by our PCOB auditors, and we declared that last week. We have achieved a 3x, tripled our revenues from quarter over quarter from 2021 to 2022, and we entered into a positive EBITDA in the first quarter, despite the Omicron and all of that stuff happened in January. And we are growing. We're growing month over month, and which is a great sign. And this all happened through organic growth. There's no any acquisitions or inorganic stuff added into these results. Everything is organic from 2021 to 2022 comparison.
I would highlight two elements, right? The first one is that the market did recover, but it didn't triple from Q1 to Q1 21 to Q1 22. So this shows basically that Mondee is growing much faster than the market, right? Now, to me as a private equity professional, growth is great, but what is even more important is profitable growth. So if you look at even some of the largest travel and travel management companies out there, in Q1 2022, they are still not EBITDA positive, and Mondee is, right? So what these results highlight is profitable growth, which is what basically, after a few years of cheap money, easy money, quantitative easing, etc., now as we have seen, the markets are adjusting, and what they are looking for is actually profitable companies, right? And Mondee, despite having in this Q1, January and February being impacted by Omicron, which is clearly an adverse effect, it was still positive EBITDA in 2022, the first quarter. So we are offering to the market something very unique. We are offering a high growth, profitable story, right? And this is why Mondee is such an exciting story in travel tech.
So to what degree do you see this growth as being scalable?
First of all, we are not even close to 2019 levels, right? And there's a huge growth that is coming from there, from the recovery of 2019 levels in the next year or so. Then we are moving ahead with this, gig economy world, and where we are seeing all indications of growth, in the new sectors and new, travel, distribution channels. Then we are expanding from air. Historically, we are doing it on air, and now we are, a good portion of our business coming from hotels, and now we are expanding into the other, travel segments, and that's all coming. And we are expanding. Historically, we are a 80% international travel player, and the international sector is going to recover, and we are going to be a significant part of that recovery. So, considering all of these aspects, so we are seeing next 3-4 years, we'll be pretty busy and, making, these big transformations and increasing our market share.
And I would add to that, what Prasad just described is effectively just the organic growth. To that, you need to add the second engine of the evolution of Mondee, which is effectively mergers and acquisitions, right? And before we get into that, another point I would highlight here for everybody that has the expertise in travel, most of the major travel companies out there, they are making, if not all, the vast majority of their profits and their revenues on hotels and other content. Air has been one of the most difficult elements of the puzzle to crack, and very, very, very few companies in their evolution were able to scale profitably, primarily with air. So Mondee has achieved that. And having achieved that in the most difficult piece of the puzzle to crack, now is very predictably disrupting the remaining spectrum, which is adding hotel content, which is already done, adding car rentals, which we did. And then like Prasad said before, the vision is to become a super app and add all conceivable travel contents to our platforms.
Now, looking at the M&A aspect of it then, what does the environment look like for being conducive to making those acquisitions, and what will we be looking for going forward, and what kind of timeline are you looking at?
Very positive environment. So, historically, we acquired the second engine of growth for Mondee is through acquisitions. So we have so far acquired 14 companies, integrated them successfully, and got a 3 to 4x return, through those acquisitions. Now looking into the future, for the second engine of growth, we want to invest into those companies and bring additional 200 million plus revenues and some high profits. The market is open, and there is a need for those companies to be finding the new homes and to be able to move effective to their offer to the market.
Yeah, I would add to that this is the perfect timing because COVID is behind us, but the recovery has just started, right? So many small companies that either have content or distribution or certain types of tech that we're looking to develop, they are still, not 100% out of the woods, right? So this is the perfect time to deploy capital to acquire smaller players at accretive EBITDA multiples, lower than what we're bringing Mondee to the public markets. Now, this opportunity is not going to be around forever. It's going to be around maybe for another 1 or 2 years. And that is why this is the perfect timing for Mondee to go public, raise additional money in addition to the pipe that we have raised, and the SPAC, to basically deploy them to basically implement this accretive M&A strategy.
Now, if this is a favorable environment to be making these purchases with these 7 or 8 acquisitions that you potentially identified, what's the proposition from their side? I mean, this is pretty incredible organic growth. And then you mentioned that in the tenure of Mondee, there's been 14 acquisitions. What risk, that doesn't come without risk, right? So what do you maybe extrapolate going forward?
Of course, I mean, there are always risks, micro risks. The COVID-19 was a risk. We are not fully out of the woods there, right? And any of these global events and wars and all of that stuff may create some risks. However, we are fully prepared to take any of those risks. The history has, taught us so much, especially in the recent past, how that we navigated with the COVID-19 in different phases. It put us into a place where that we'll be able to handle any kind of risk and be able to achieve, our targets in a most sustainable way. So in that aspect, so we are very lucky to have a sustainable value-based company to manage in this risk environment.
And to add to that, I mean, one of the things that I admire about Prasad, and also one of the things that we have a very common way of looking at this world, is that to us, every challenge is effectively an opportunity, right? So whatever crisis comes, for example, COVID, like Prasad said, was the worst in the eyes of most people. It was kind of a generational shock to the travel industry. What did Mondee do? Instead of just throwing more money on a soft marketing, soft kind of market, or kind of crying about the disaster that has bestowed the industry, what did Mondee do? It did 2 things. It invested in the technology, and it used these 2 years to come out with new products that are catching everybody by surprise. And number 2, we drew on our credit lines and we went and we bought 7 companies, another 7 companies. So we basically increased by 30-40% the size of Mondee. So in a way, you can argue that, because of the way that it was managed, COVID was a blessing to Mondee. So this is something that I think it's important about the culture of an organization, right? These are things that are in the DNA of a company, and this is one of the many reasons that I'm so excited to be part of this story.
And I guess to take more of a conceptual note, Orestes, we've seen a number of sponsors that have experienced success in other ventures, but then when they get more into the SPACs, it kind of fizzles out. And it's not that one, just because you excel in one venture doesn't necessarily translate into being a fantastic sponsor. So with that, what do you see as the key differentiator that makes a really successful sponsor versus those that don't quite make the cut?
Yes, I mean, for us, there are a number of unique features that differentiate us from most of the sponsors in the space. The first one is that I'm the founder of a private equity fund that only invests in travel and hospitality, right? So we venture into the space that we have deep expertise, right? So that's one, big differentiating factor here. The second one is that, as you know, the SPAC is it's just a tool, right? It's like a fork, right? You can use it to eat or you can poke your eye, right? So for us, the SPAC product works at certain periods of the evolution of the market and in certain circumstances. When the SPAC product was designed, and it started working in the 90s, it was just a cash flow arbitrage, right? You're supposed to find a private company and a public company that basically are similar, but they have dissimilar valuations because of a certain dislocation in private and public markets, and then take the private company public, right? In this context, if you think about it, in general technology or in energy or any other space, right, of the economy, public and private market valuations were the same, right? So there was no role effectively for the SPAC product, apart from travel, because the pandemic caused this dislocation between private and public valuations. You could see the likes of, Marriott, Expedia, Booking, 6-7 months into the pandemic, they were trading at historic highs, right? But then their private counterparts, they were transacting at the discounts. So it is this dislocation that existed at this specific point in time that we sought to capitalize, and Mondee is precisely that, right? And then the third differentiating factor, I would say, is not only the chemistry between the sponsors and the management team, which may sound cliche, people say chemistry, whatever. But the reality is that in addition to this kind of strong bond that we have forged with Prasad and the rest of the management team, we are actually contributing and assisting the management team in its specific strategy with very tangible connections, with very tangible contracts, with very tangible relationships, which I feel that, just by being, together, Mondee is a more valuable company than what it was, without this kind of nexus and the meeting of the minds that we had. So I think these three features are making this really, really unique proposition. And that is why, as you have seen, the financial press have singled us out as a unique, story, a bright spot. There was an article. So I believe that we are doing something amazing here with Prasad and the team.
And I want to add a few more things here, or one more thing. So the way the SPAC sponsors mentality is to identify the companies, value the companies at a very, high price, and, to satisfy the companies and to satisfy the market and all. Very opportunistic, but Orestes, Dimitri, and the team, they have done a great job of, valuing the company with the right metrics. To start with EBITDA, valuation, and like a private equity, private transaction valuation methodology they used. So that way, it doesn't change. It doesn't create a hype in the market, and when the market shifts, it's a problem. So their feet are touched to the ground, and they are looking for the right partners and the right valuation, and to bring the value from what they can bring it to the whole partnership, and to create a win-win deal for all the parties. So I think in that aspect, they're very unique in their sponsorship and the SPAC that we are working here together.
So that actually starts to directly touch on why investors should care or have as much excitement and as much passion for this transaction as you are. Could you maybe expand on that more?
Yes, to me as a private equity professional and an investor exclusively in travel and hospitality, this is a unique opportunity for the investor community on a risk-adjusted basis to optimally take advantage of the recovery of travel by investing in Mondee. Why is that? Because first, there is value. This is a company that had historical EBITDA and which has already returned to positive EBITDA in Q1 2022, which is unique amongst even some of the largest travel or travel management companies out there. And to add to this element of value, the investment that is being done at a valuation that was locked in the summer of 2021 before most of the travel recovery has occurred. So this is very unique from the perspective of value and profitability, which is what the market is currently looking in view of the current market conditions. In addition to that, an investor is not just capturing a value story here, but a very high growth story. Mondee has already become the market leader by disrupting a certain small segment of this 1 trillion market, which is sales of discounted flights to travel agents. It has done that profitably. It has grown 40% organically, 60% with M&A, but now very predictably is expanding the disruption to capture almost the entire 1 trillion segment of the market by going beyond travel agencies to gig economy workers, to influencers, to segments of corporate, to subscription products, and also beyond flights. We already have hotels, we're adding cruises, car rentals, to basically disrupt the entire segment of this 1 trillion affiliated segment of the travel market.
Now with that, I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Dan.